Hello, and a very warm welcome to the Sacred Womb podcast, where we talk about all things to do with befriending our menstrual cycle, deeply healing both our feminine and masculine aspects, and how we can indeed utilise our cyclical nature as a natural spiritual pathway that's encoded within our bodies. I'm your host, Melanie Swan, and you can also go to thesacredwomb.com for more information and loads of fantastic free resources. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the podcast. Big thank you to those who have given me feedback about the last episode. I really appreciate it. It means I know how this stuff is landing and what you're responding to, what you want more of, and what's really turning you on to your womb and your blood and your cycle and this juicy womb work. So, yeah, and you've asked for more of this kind of stuff. So I'm very happy to introduce to you today Kate Joyner of Silver Moon Poetry. So Kate's a performance artist and temple witch, and she's created a performance called The Blood Tales, in which she performs 13 poems, all of which she's brought through to help shift our consciousness around the feminine, women's bodies and our blood. So I'm going to read her introduction about what The Blood Tales is, so you've got some context to this, and then Kate will introduce herself. So The Blood Tales is a one-woman show that's going to transport you to the depths of the mystery carried inside, bringing into consciousness that which has been banished to the deep, dark shadows. The performance will cause you to rethink what you thought you knew about women's blood. Deeply provocative, sensual and political, the performance will awaken parts of you you never knew existed. It will turn you onto a different reality and show you that the revolution does indeed lie in between blood-kissed thighs. The show is a calling to remember. It's a transmission of feminine magic and erotic wisdom all in one basket. It's where the feminine and art come into form and create lasting imprints of the matrix of creation. Wow. So here we go, ladies. Kate Joyner of Silver Moon Poetry. So welcome to the podcast, Kate.
Thank you.
Could you introduce yourself for us, please?
Yes, I can. My name is Kate Joyner and I go by Silver Moon Poetry. I've been writing the unspoken voices of the feminine through poetry since 2014. And I've been creating performance with my poetry and taking it to all of the places that I've inhabited over the globe, so all through Europe and to the States and also to India. And I'm currently in Barcelona for the next while, for the winter at least.
Oh, wow. What are you doing in Barcelona at the moment?
Well, I've got a few things that I'm juggling. I'm working with my director here in what I predict is going to be the last phase of the development of the Blood Tales. I'm also at a theatre school here. It's a theatre lab, and I'm just in the second year of that. And then I've also just created a temple space for women to come and drop into their feminine essence and the life of their soul. So I've got these three major projects all happening at the same time.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. I can see it. That's your temple where you're at now, huh?
Yeah, this is the temple space. So the altar's at the back and it's all decorated for Halloween, and it's got all the photos of my ancestors, and I've been burning candles since last night. So yeah, it feels very, very beautiful to be here at this moment.
Oh, great. So how did you get started with all this, Kate? How did it come to you?
Well, it's a good question. I would say it's been in me all along, and through the kind of the giving myself to my soul journey, I ended up going to the States to work with Bill Plotkin and the Animus Valley Institute, and I did a year-long immersion with them. And after my vision fast in Utah in 2014, about a month after, I was living in the mountains in Santa Cruz, and I started to literally receive poetry. And in the space of about 3 months, I wrote about 50 or 60 poems. And it was really clear from the get-go, from the beginning, that there was something really important about my voice and my body in the delivery of the poetry. So I started to create performance. And I feel like what happens is, what's important about my voice and my body is that it's the combination of my words, my voice, my body that allows this transmission of the feminine to come through. And that's really kind of what my task is in this lifetime, is to speak the unspoken voices of the feminine. So it's been kind of it's come through my own soul journey and my being taken to places, going outside of my comfort zone, going to different, being held and being led by different guides and different teachers. And it's just kind of emerged from saying yes to life, really.
Okay. And did you, because it's the blood tales and it's about feminine and it's about our blood and our cycles, did you have a specific way of connecting with your own cycle or your own blood?
Yeah, I did. I do. So one of the other processes that I've been involved in was an initiation into the deep feminine, and also got in touch with different teachers through that journey, and started to become conscious of my blood, and started to track my blood cycle, and started to notice the different energies that I inhabit on different days of the month, and just to kind of drop into this kind of feminine consciousness that we are kind of cyclical beings, and we have this life death cycle that happens in our bodies every month. So yeah, my practice like in the beginning became about becoming conscious of that cycle, and then from that, then getting more in touch with my bleeding time has taken me to a whole other depth of mystery and magic within my own body and within my own soul. Yeah.
And I recall we talked about this a little before we recorded, and I remember you telling me about the river and giving your blood away. Would you mind sharing that with everyone?
Yeah. So when I started to become conscious of my blood and what the magic and the mystery of my blood, it was really clear that, and this is what one of my poems says, is like, don't throw it down the toilet. And so I started to save my blood, and I started to give it back to the earth. And there's a Hopi prophecy. It's not a prophecy, it's a proverb that says, when all women give their blood back to the earth will be healed. So I started to give my blood back to the earth, and I was living in Devon at the time, and I went down to the river, which is by my house, and I sat in ceremony next to the river, and I sang and I made prayer, and then it came to the time of offering my blood to the water. And in my imagination, I was pouring the blood, and then it would sail on down the river. So I poured my blood, and that's not what happened. What happened was the water was still and stagnant, and my blood stayed in this pool in the water, and it didn't go anywhere. And I didn't know what to do. I kind of stood there like, okay, you can go now, you can go now, you can go now. But it didn't go, obviously. And so I kind of stood up, and I was in despair. And in that moment that I stood up, there was 2 dog walkers coming from either side of me. And in that moment, I just felt the level of shame that I carried in my body, because if these dog walkers see my blood, like what's going to happen? And like I realized, that I was feeling ashamed of my blood. And then so I walked home and I was like, why am I carrying so much shame around my blood? Why is it so shameful if these people see my blood? Like, this blood is essence, it's life force, it's magic. Like, why? So it was in that moment that I realized that, and I had a really strong visceral body experience, that I had so much shame around my blood.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds very strong. Did the blood flow eventually, or did it really stay there for you to help, I don't know, to help bring this up?
I can't actually remember what happened. I think I might have kind of got a stick and tried to move it or something. But yeah, I mean, it stayed there for a long time. And the dog walkers didn't come down to the river, which was lucky in that moment for me anyway. So I actually don't remember what happened to the blood, but I just remember going home with this really rude awakening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Sounds like a strong experience.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this would be a fantastic time to hear one of your poems.
Yeah, great.
Yeah? Okay, fantastic.
Every month, I'm pulled down and asked to remember. I'm pulled into the ground, boom, in, go right in, stop, look, listen, don't turn away, shh. If you move, you'll miss it. The river flows from me back to the bigger river. Mess real can't be kept in. Wild running loose. Let me loose. Don't try and box me. I don't like boxes. Slow down, really down, low down. Get the low down from the ground. She wants to tell you something of your own nature. It's the soul, the red soul. Blood, earth, colors, reminding you that the moon is really inside of you. You are the earth, moon, new and dead, full of life. With every single passing of the days that are your true existence, like love, never ending love. Please don't pour me down the toilet. Pour me back to the earth, pour me into the rivers, feed the earth's soul with your soul. Pour yourself into her, let yourself be undone into her. Don't stop pouring. She is waiting for you, crying sweet tears for you to come and join. Will you remember the sacred wave of you, wildly red?
Oh, there are actually no words after hearing that. And I have a few tears and I feel deeply, deeply touched. Thank you, Kate.
Mm.
I just have to give myself a minute, actually, just to let it sink in. And yeah, I was getting lots of almost like soul imagery
Yeah.
as you were speaking. I just felt so still. How many poems do you read in like a performance?
Well, the performance has evolved since its conception, or since its birth, its first birth. It's been born many times. So when I got the original instruction to create the Blood Tales, I was told to go home and write all of the poems from the blood, the space of the blood. So I already had like one or two poems that had come through whilst I was on my bleed. So, and then the instruction was to go home and create more and create the blood tales. So I went home and I collected 13 poems. I went for 3 moon cycles, consecutive moon cycles. I would like go into retreat and I would listen to what the blood wanted to say. Mm-hmm. And I'd listen to how the blood wanted me to create the blood tales. So for 3 moon cycles, I listened and wrote this collection of 13 poems. And yeah, it created what is the blood tales, and the life of that has kind of taken me down this blood red river, and it's very mysterious. So,
and given the impact that your poem had with me, what sort of reactions do you get from audiences? How are they during the performance, and how are they after?
It's a good question. Like one of my favorite audience reactions was at my performance that I did in Oakland over the summer. I had a man come up to me at the end of the show and say, seeing your show makes me really wish I could menstruate.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was very blown away by that feedback. And I think just in general, people are just so it's gone from being a spoken word performance, purely me standing there speaking my poems and then weaving some story in between the poems, to now being a full-blown theatrical performance. And so it takes people into it, and through the theatre, it's kind of like the true potency is really coming through. And so people are really impacted by both the text, and also being invited into this sacred soul theatre ritual space. And so another performance that I did in Santa Cruz over the summer, it was my most powerful performance to date. And when I finished the performance, I came out onto the stage and took my bow, and nobody clapped. Everybody was in such a deep space that they were just like, whoa. So I could feel the field. And so I went backstage and I took some water and came out about 2 or 3 minutes later. And I was just like, okay, everyone, how's everyone doing? And just gently easing them back into the transition. So really people are quite blown away, because it not only do they feel it viscerally in their bodies, but it also totally shifts their consciousness around what they thought the blood, or potentially people already have been on this journey, but it takes them into another kind of like depth around what the blood actually is. So it's a real kind of like 360 degrees, like shake up, wake up,
Yeah. And when you say it's gone from this kind of one woman spoken word show and now it's a whole theatrical piece, is it still just you, or are there more people?
Yeah, no, it's a one woman show still. So it is just me, yeah.
Yeah.
But now I have a director, and I have lights and sound, and yeah, it's very immersive, very beautiful.
Yeah. And where are you performing next?
Well, I'm hoping to line some performances up in Barcelona come February, March. So that's in the making at the moment. And then we'll see. I'd like to, as I'm working with my director this winter, it's kind of coming into its final evolution. And so when it's really complete, then I really want to kind of take it out and maybe bring it to the UK, maybe take it to the States. So yeah, I'd like to just take it wherever I can take it, really.
Okay, well, can I book my ticket for February in Barcelona, please?
Yes, you can.
Seriously, I want the link as soon as it's out. I'm coming.
Great.
I'm going to have to fight myself not to come on stage with you, actually. Having done lots of acting, I promise you I'll hold back. But so incorporated into your performance is like a Q&A at the end? Do you come on every time, or do you feel into it each time?
Yeah, we did Q&As at two of the three performances last year. Over the summer. So yeah, that's something that we do, and it depends on the space, depends how long we've got the theatre for, and all of these things. But yeah.
Yeah. And do you tend to go for smaller spaces, or bigger spaces, or what do you like?
Well, it really works well in like the black box kind of theatre spaces, and anything from kind of 30 to 100 seats. That works really well.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Have you ever performed whilst you're bleeding?
Yes. And they've been the most powerful performances. So, part of my tracking my moon cycle is, during our Moontime we're meant to, well, not meant to, there's no rules, but there's a natural kind of tendency to just like go into stillness and go in and go into the cave and just really be in this internal world. And so when it's happened that I've had performances booked for months and my cycle shifts, and then I've got a performance and my blood is coming on that day, it's like, but I've just kind of gone, obviously I have to go and do, and want to go and do the performance. But initially I was like, oh my God, how am I going to make this work? But the first time it happened, I had the most powerful experience, and this character emerged. And so really it was and that character is now being built into the show. So really, like, the way that this show has come into life is through listening to the blood, and then the character has come through the blood. So really it's kind of like the blood river has its own life and I'm just its vessel. And so getting to perform on my blood has actually been really powerful. Really, really powerful.
Okay. I'm intrigued. Could you tell me, if it's not like a spoiler for your show, a little bit about this character that's come out specifically when you've bled, when you're performing, when you're bleeding?
Yeah, she's kind of like this crazy witch who is kind of shameless and fearless and is very provocative. She kind of dances in between the profound and the profane. And so she's just kind of like, constantly in conversation and interacting with the audience in that dance.
Is she wild?
She's wild. Like, she's wild as wild can be. She's great fun.
Yeah, I can imagine, and I look forward to meeting her.
Mm-hmm.
So, if, like, obviously there's people have listening to this podcast and maybe they're wanting to try and write or use their moon time as a creative time. Have you got any tips for listeners to try to help them get into that space during moon time?
Yeah, I would say give space. Just really go in to the quietness and really listen. I feel like, a bit like Halloween, the veil is the thinnest at this time, and it's also the thinnest when we're bleeding. We're at our most raw, we're at our most vulnerable. It's where our soul is really at the surface. So, I mean, I feel like part of the discipline in a way is just learning to listen and be really honest and not distract ourselves like by going outward, but just to really listen to that voice inside of us that's speaking. And then just, even if you're not a poet or you're not a creator of any sort, just go with the impulse. If you hear something like, oh yeah, just write this first line. So I never know how a poem's going to turn out when I start writing it. And so, but I'm given the first line, and so I'll write the first line, and then it will just come, and then it comes out, and then it's done. So to just trust that impulse and trust the deep dreaming of that time, it's so magical.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Kate. Oh, I feel so relaxed after speaking to you, and I really look forward to meeting you in person and experiencing your performance, because it sounds like it's definitely not something to be watched. It's something to be experienced and to be touched by, and it really helps shift consciousness around bleeding and what women are.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks so much for your time. And I'd just like to add that I think you're looking for spaces to perform.
Yeah, always. I mean, if people are interested in the performance and they'd like to host the performance in the town or in the city, then yeah, just get in touch and we can be in conversation about that.
Okay. So how can people find you, Kate? What's your website?
Yeah, my website is silvermoonpoetry.com, and I have a contact page on that website, so you can just send me an email through that.
And I know you're on Instagram. Are you on Facebook as well?
I am, yeah, Silver Moon Poetry for both of those.
Okay, for everyone listening, I'll put all those links in the show notes so that you can get in touch with Kate and go and see one of her performances. All right, thank you so much for your time. It's been amazing.
Thank you, Melanie. Thank you so much.
See ya. Bye.
Bye.
Wow. I don't know really what to say about that except for wow. I hope that work spreads far and wide, and I would ask you to please share this episode with your sisters, with your partners, with your friends, so that this work can really spread as far as possible to shift our consciousness around who we are, our blood, and everything that Kate and Silver Moon Poetry bring. Oh, okay. Well, few things to tell you before I go. The Sacred Womb Cycle Tracker is going to be out soon. I'm producing that in collaboration with Helen Burt. She's an amazing artist, so that's coming soon. And the Moon Lodge registration for next year's intake opens in January as well. So links to that will go in the show notes as well. Check that out. And as I said, please, if you've enjoyed this, please share it with as many people as possible. And I might see you at one of Kate's performances. I feel like I'll be getting a lot of tickets, buying a lot of tickets for it and showing up to a lot of shows. So, yeah. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, and I'll see you next time. I really hope you enjoyed the podcast and that you got some useful tips out of it that can make a genuine difference in your daily life. And if you'd love to work deeper with this stuff, then do head on over to thesacredwomb.com, where you can sign up to receive the weekly newsletter and an invite to our private Facebook group, where you can share, learn and grow with like-minded women in a safe, supported space. Thank you so much for tuning in. Do leave us a rating, and your comments are very, very welcome. And I'll see you next time.